Welcome, welcome. I am Dr. Barry. I am so glad to be back. I took a bit of a week off or so from content creation. Our family, we did a trip to Disney, and I just finished recording a video talking about that. And I will be talking today. This video is about the book Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And I already have some questions. Sarah was one of my members that asked for this. Thanks again for being a member. And we are going to talk about because mothers who are narcissists. And so then, can you have one emotionally immature parent and a mature one? Yes, you can. And often, if that mature one isn't setting boundaries with the immature one, in my experience, there tends to be some codependence there, or there seems to be some issues because I think the mature one should help there be better boundaries for the children. But let's hop right into the book. This book is by Lindsay Gibson, and she is a licensed clinical psychologist. And this was based on my review of the book. I also used a little bit of Chat GPT to help me kind of organize some of these things. But the book talks about the impact of growing up with emotionally immature parents and how that can affect individuals in adulthood. And she specifically talks about growing up with parents who are um, self absorbed. Let me get to all of my notes. Here we go. Yes. Specifically, and that's where it gets into some of the narcissistic parents when they are self-absorbed. That typically falls there. Please remember, narcissism is a spectrum, and people can fall a lot of different places on that spectrum. But typically, what happens in families is that sometimes individuals that grow up in these types of environments, as a psychologist, what I see is sometimes they struggle with self esteem. Sometimes the children struggle with perfectionism. The children can struggle with thoughts of not being good enough. There can be a lot of people pleasing behavior because within those households, the adult is saying, do what I say, do what I want you to do so that I'm okay. That they make the children responsible for their emotions. Whereas for me, so with my child, if my child does something that upsets me, I'm gonna talk about his behavior, but it's not his job to make me happy. It's not my husband's job to make me happy. My happiness is in my hands, and that comes with a bit of maturity. Individuals that grow up in these types of households can have difficulty setting boundaries. They might struggle with asserting themselves in healthy ways, and they might also struggle with depression, anxiety, sense of emptiness or hopelessness, because sometimes what was normal for them, the therapist looks at them like, "Ooh, that was not okay." So I worked with people where they might have had neglectful parents, and it was normal for them at 5 years old to be home all alone. And I'm looking like, "Ooh, that was not okay." Or what was normal for them might have been unsafe. I'm trying to stay away from those words, the tube doesn't like. Individuals that grow up in these types of households can also be very hypervigilant. Due to that unstable environment, they can have a heightened state of vigilance and constantly monitoring their parents' moods and adjusting their behavior to avoid conflict or emotional outbursts. And then what they do is they take that behavior and they apply it to other relationships as well. So with even with safe people, they're still not asserting themselves still because there's that fear that they're going to get that response that they do get from that parent. There can be difficulty trusting others, especially there can be difficulty forming healthy attachments with other people. there can be a lot of internalized blame and shame because often immature parents will shame their children into doing what they want them to do. So instead of just saying like, "Hey, I need you to clean up your room," a emotionally immature parent would say, "Oh, if you want me to look bad," or I don't know, like they use this language that is very manipulative, that is not okay, that doesn't create trust, safety. Instead of just appropriately, because let's say the child does something that they need some redirection for, they don't end up coming back in those healthy ways. And there can be an emotional detachment for the children, where in some cases people can kind of disconnect themselves emotionally and not be connected to emotions at all. And so um I just want to make sure, welcome, welcome. Thank y'all for being here. Never good enough. Yes. And it wasn't, but I that was the parent projecting their own insecurity. So I don't get my worth and value from my child. Not only is he not responsible for my happiness, he is also not responsible for my worth and value. Because but often in some of these types of households, the children are their source and like it's not a healthy dynamic. It's not healthy at all. And the reason why I brought up codependency and enmeshment, that if there is a mature parent and an immature parent, that sometimes that mature parent is trying to fix and save that immature parent. And now no parent is perfect. So every parent is going to make mistakes. No parent is going to get it right all the time. Not even possible. And every parent is going to have times when they might be a little bit more self-absorbed, where they might be a little disconnected. I don't like every parent is going to have those moments, but we're talking about patterns, ongoing patterns that go like this that can cause long-term issues. And so the book, I have a link to it down in the description. It is a phenomenal book. I heard about it over on TikTok first, of course. A lot of different people were talking about the book, and I'm always looking for resources to share with my clients because therapy. So I don't think therapy is the only way to heal. That there can be tools, resources, apps. So if my client is struggling with insomnia, sometimes I'll recommend that they check out. There's an app called CBTI. So it's cognitive behavior therapy for insomnia. It was developed by the VA, I believe, for veterans. And that there are these free tools and resources that can sometimes supplement a person's healing journey. Um, but the goal of the book is to understand the impact of emotionally immature parents, highlighting the long-lasting effects that it can have in various ways that um, that people can cope with any emotional neglect, lack of empathy, or boundary violations that they've experienced within childhood. The goal is to also recognize patterns and develop healthy coping mechanisms because sometimes within an environment like that, I might not have seen the parent deal with their emotions in a healthy way. And I want to make sure that I'm taking time to deal with those things appropriately and to set those healthy boundaries and do those things. That can be really important. If y'all have questions as I go, you can feel free to put any questions down there. I will be going back and forth between some of my notes and then also coming into your questions as well. The goal of the book is also to build healthier relationships, offering guidance to develop effective communication, boundaries, fostering emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is my ability to regulate my own emotions, to recognize and understand the emotions of others, have good social skills and conflict resolution skills. So that would be emotional intelligence. And often parents that have these types of parenting styles, they struggle in some of those areas. And the goal is to break the cycle and that to break that cycle of emotional immaturity by working on your own emotional growth. So all of my clients, anyone that's in treatment with me that's grown up in situations like that, I'm always like, there is no way that, like, because if you are in treatment, you are trying to get better. And so, like, developing that, like Sarah said, that emotional safety and security, all of that is so important. And Sarah, I'm glad that you mentioned talking about finding safe places. So the good thing, I'm glad that if somebody is growing up in a situation where one parent isn't safe, to have a safe parent is very important, because I've worked with some people where neither parent was safe, and that creates much worse outcomes. Resilience is something that I like to talk about a lot too. That just because somebody goes through a situation, it doesn't mean that, yes, they're going to develop PTSD or that they're going to develop this other thing. That having one mature parent can sometimes help mitigate the dynamics, and some of the um, can help mitigate some things. The reason why I'm very careful about the language I use is because sometimes people think it's better to keep the family together than to not be together. And in general, I think it's better for kids to come from a broken home than to be in one. And that's something that I heard online a while back, and I will say it again. It's better for kids to come from a broken home than be in one. And so, if we're going to work on fixing things, if we're going to work on doing better, being the supports that our kids need, great. But if we're not, then we have to talk about where things are going, and that there can be people that do help close some of those gaps that maybe I didn't get the help and support that I needed from one of my parents. I was raised by a single mom. So some of y'all have watched the podcast. I record the podcast with my mom. I grew up with her. I did not grow up with my dad. My relationship with him has gotten better as an adult, and there a lot of things that I talk with my clients about, I practice for myself. That sometimes what can happen is I can be expecting this person to be and do something that they are not capable of doing. So if I have a parent, and I do, so I this I'm just giving a general example. If I have a parent that is self-involved, expecting them to put me first, what if they're not capable of that? And so I might have to set things up in a way. So let's say I'm going to visit them for a holiday, and I know that they're going to try to guilt trip me. Like, it's I want to go for a week, but I know, like, I can only tolerate 3 days. Then let's just do 3 days. That there are ways that I can set some boundaries for myself, because sometimes what can happen is I'm expecting, well, mothers shouldn't do that, or fathers shouldn't do that, or this is how families should. We let go of these shoulds. I have to accept what is. And acceptance isn't approval. Acceptance is just not fighting reality. And my reality might be, this person is not capable of meeting my needs. And if they're not, then I need to find safe and healthy ways to get this need met. Because it's not like this need is fine. Like, it's not wrong, or this need isn't inappropriate. Like, it's okay for me to have this need, but I can't get it from this person. And I have to grieve that. So that is hard, because we have in our mind our idea of, like, what people should and shouldn't do. But then I might have to accept, but this is my situation and this is how I best navigate it. Let me go on ahead and check out the comments. Yes. All right. So talking about custody disputes. Yes. All right. And somebody else mentioned not having a safe parent. And oh wow. Started therapy. That book helped me a lot more than therapy did. Thank you for saying that. So I have heard so many people have a lot of freedom, like, really, that this book really related to them. And then I have some other people that read the book and they didn't like it. So, so if I recommend a book, I'm not guaranteeing that you're going to like it, but yes. And then got a question, what types of therapies are good for healing CPTSD? My therapist recommends EMDR, but not quite sure that it's right for me. Does it work with CPTSD? So the most important thing with with a healing journey is the relationship that you have with the therapist. So we've done research, and really so having a skilled trauma therapist, because trauma informed therapists, that just means that they know how to handle, but like trauma informed doesn't mean trauma skilled. It doesn't mean they have the tools and resources. So I work a lot with trauma and grief. And so I regularly do trainings to yearly. I do probably 5 to 10 hours of continuing education specifically for trauma, because I want to stay on top of the research. I want to stay on top of all those things. I am not certified in EMDR yet. It is one of the things I would like to do. But what EMDR does is it helps reprocess the trauma with CPTSD, with complex post-traumatic stress disorder or developmental trauma. The hard thing about it is that we're not talking about one instance, we're talking about a lifetime. But often what can happen with EMDR is we can learn how to regulate our brain and our emotions in a way where the emotions aren't taking over. The survival responses aren't completely taking over. You will know if it's the right fit for you or not. So within my work with clients, I tell them like, hey, if anything, they know them best. So if something doesn't feel right to them, they can let me know that, like, hey, I didn't like this, or I don't think this is the right fit for me. Like, so a lot of the trauma survivors I work with, we're talking about how can you trust yourself? How can you really give yourself space? And I think trusting that. So EMDR, I've talked about it before, and I can try to find the link, that a picture. So there are different stages to EMDR treatment. Let me find, and I can try to share this. Because there are people that don't get to the point of reprocessing. So let me share my screen. Give me one moment. Here we go. Is this the one? Okay. Share. Now, how did I do this? Okay, good. I did it right. All right. So, EMDR treatment starts with history, identity, and developing a treatment plan. And then you're going to create a safe space, develop self-soothing techniques, and connect with inner resources. And then there's going to be an assessment phase of identifying events and triggers. And some of those events and triggers could be in the present. For some people, it's too distressful to talk about specific things from the past. And so each therapist kind of navigates that in a different way. Identify associated emotions and body sensations and create a positive belief statement. And then bilateral. So the last part. So a lot of times when we think about EMDR, we think about the bilateral stimulation. It doesn't have to be, because some therapists use their finger. Some therapists, like, it's clicking back and forth. Any person can do some techniques. I'm looking to see if I have um I was doing a video earlier with my kids velociraptor, but just moving something from one hand to the next, normally a ball. I don't have a small ball near me, but just doing something like that can sometimes be very soothing and calming to the brain. And so there are some people that don't do the full EMDR treatment, but they do provide some of the resources and tools. There's one called a butterfly hug. You hear about it on TikTok. There are probably some videos on here that talk about it, but you interlace your fingers and you click from one side to the other. But those are some different ways of retraining your brain. I have some older videos on trauma and different things that you can check out if you would like. But with the book, they talk about 4 different parenting types. The emotional parent. This type of parent can be pretty volatile and unpredictable, and can have intense emotional reactions like anger and sadness, and can express exaggerated or uncontrolled emotions. And they may have difficulty regulating their own emotions and may expect their children to take care of their emotional needs. I have seen this a lot in therapy. The controlling parent. This type of parent exerts excessive control over their children's lives. Okay, so I am going to record a video talking about that. Alexi Trevio. I'm gonna be doing that one later today. It will drop later this week. Her mother. Whew. I saw that video where they came to the house. So this was a teenager, I think she's 19 years old, out in New Mexico. Had a horrible, tragic situation in a hospital bathroom. And her mother, like, oh, so she seemed to be, and this is just my perception, things I have seen from the videos that I've seen, just seemed to be very controlling. And it's my understanding that Alexi was still trying to say, like, I'm a virgin. I haven't had, it's like, you had a baby. Like, clearly. And I also saw a video where I think the father of the child was in the lobby as well. And so I'm gonna take a look at some of I'm gonna react to some of Law and Crimes videos and talk a little bit more about that case. But that controlling parent can micromanage, manipulate, or dominate their children's choices and decisions, leaving little room for independent thinking and autonomy. They have difficulty respecting their children's boundaries and may use guilt or manipulation to maintain control. And and children that grow up in households like that, some tend to be very sneaky and some tend to not get what is wrong with their behavior. So sometimes children that grow up in very controlling environments, sometimes some people will lack some because the parent went too far. So authoritarian parenting, so authoritarian, that's like it's not particularly helpful. The kid might do what you told them to do in your presence, but often outside of your presence, they're because you're ruling and controlling the child based on fear. And it creates so many problems down the road, and I'm going to talk more about that case a little bit during that next recording. Wow. So the neglectful parent is emotionally detached, often indifferent to their children's needs, may be uninvolved or preoccupied with their own lives, leaving their children feeling neglected, unseen, or unimportant. These parents may lack emotional attunement or fail to give the necessary nurturance, and care. And then the inconsistent parent. This is a parent that's very unpredictable, is inconsistent in their parenting style and behavior. They may vacillate between being very emotionally available and then being emotionally distant, and that can create confusion for children. And that's when we talk about attachment styles. That we have secure attachment and then we have different types of avoidant attachment. And so and then because we wanted to talk a little bit about narcissistic mothers. And so, because I have a whole video talking about Alec Murdaugh and the narcissism that, so I'm not saying he has it, but a lot of traits seem to be present. He seemed to view his children through his own lens, and if they weren't making him look good, that could, yes. And so, a narcissistic mother typically exhibits a range of characteristics that center around their need for admiration, control, and attention. While it's important to note that not all mothers with with these traits are narcissistic, here are some common features associated with narcissistic mothers. A self-centeredness. So I'm big on self-care. Okay. So I believe mothers should, like, you gotta take time for you. Right now, my kiddo, he has quiet time. So that's why I record between like 1 and 3 because that is my kiddo's quiet time. I have been with him since first thing in the morning. I will put him down to bed at night, but that I get a few hours where I just get to take care of me. But a narcissistic mother is preoccupied with their own needs, desires, and achievements, often at the expense of their children's well-being. So that's a problem. There can be this lack of empathy. They struggle to empathize with or understand their children's emotions and experiences, while their main focus is their own feelings and desires. There can be a lot of manipulation and exploitation. Narcissistic mothers may manipulate and exploit their children to meet their own needs. They may use guilt, emotional blackmail or other tactics to control their children's behaviors or emotions, which is very problematic. There can be this grandiosity or superiority, and that's a major feature of narcissistic personality disorder. They have an inflated sense of self importance and believe they are superior to others. You saw a lot of that with Letitia Stout. Her talking about that doctorate, which we never really figured out, like, where did that doctor? I forgot the other name, but yes, with Leticia, and they may belittle or devalue their children's accomplishments or interests. And this is the parent that I get my bachelor's degree, and then they're like, "Oh, but I have my master's." I get my master's degree, and they're like, "Oh, but mine is in technology. Yours is in like it's this. The parent is actually competing with the child, which is not healthy or okay. Um, emotional volatility. Emotional volatility. Narcissistic mothers can exhibit unpredictable mood swings, ranging from extreme anger and aggression to moments of intense affection or charm, which is incredibly confusing for children. And this is what the child knows is normal. And so somebody that grows up with this all of their life, this is what they're going to think love is. This is what they're going to think is normal. And it's often not until they start to get older, they start to see how other people's parents talk to they start to like everybody's parents don't blame and shame them for their great, like this, like it can be really eye opening, and it can be like coming out of a fog when it's like, oh, my experience isn't. So that's where some people that grow up in environments like this, they don't start to exhibit problems until they realize that this wasn't okay. So, in my opinion, it seems like Buster Murdaugh, I don't think he saw anything wrong with what his dad did. And because he doesn't believe that, I don't, or whatever, for whatever reason, I don't know. Like that family is very, very interesting. And then also Buster being on his father's side also helps him still have his father's love. Because if at any point Buster had turned on Alec, Alec would have completely that wouldn't have been good. That would not have been good at all. And so uh I like to give examples that we've talked about in different just from these popular, like once again, I can't diagnose. I'm just saying things like this. I've seen situations where it's like, ugh, that's a problem. There can be an emotional volatility where there can be unpredictable mood swings, and they're often triggered. So it's often when the person isn't getting their way, maybe when they look bad or when they are getting some feedback. So a narcissist hears feedback as criticism. So if a narcissist does something wrong and you tell them like, "Hey, you did this wrong," they're like, "You're wrong." Like they'll like turn on you, and it's like, "I was just trying to give you." They hear feedback as criticism, because their sense of self is so fragile, so incredibly fragile. I'm pretty sure I've said it before, but the narcissist's secret is that they are incredibly insecure. It's all of the puffing up, all the peacocking, it's all for show. Like, they don't actually believe these things. They don't actually like, deep down, subconsciously, they actually feel incredibly insecure. Often, because so I normally don't see narcissists in treatment. I often sometimes, like, I'll have a parent that might be having some, then the child is my identified patient. I've had situations where, a couple has come in and one of them was exhibiting, it's like, oh, same, but or, but tip I there haven't been a ton of times where an individual with narcissistic features has come in for treatment, because a true full narcissistic personality disorder, they are not gonna see anything wrong with anything that they are doing. There are some people on TikTok that like talk about their recovery with narcissism and that they did do therapy, they did do treatment. I don't follow any of those individuals. If their content comes across my page, I see it. But yes, boundary violations. They may struggle with respecting their children's boundaries, invading privacy, and disregarding their individuality. often what I see with this is a parent that's telling their kid's business everywhere, even though the kid has said, like, please don't talk with your sister about like my mental health and the fact that I'm in therapy. And but like the parent has to make themselves look good. And so they have to like say what's wrong with other people to everybody else because they're trying to look good or better. And it's really problematic. Neglect or conditional love. So those are sometimes the conditional love is if you're doing what I want you to do. And if you're making me look good, then that's the one that might be the hero, the golden child, but um sometimes if they view you as the black sheep or as the problem one, hmm. So narcissistic mothers may neglect their children's emotional or physical needs, viewing their own needs as more important. I heard about a story recently. A mother went on a 10-day vacation and left, I think it was 18-month-old, and left an 18-month-old home by themselves. Like 10, like you shouldn't leave a 10-month-old unsupervised for like longer than like who what? Like 10 days. And I just can't. So now, if I'm working with somebody that is coming in with where I'm doing an assessment and I'm working with this individual, because as a therapist, my goal is to be non judgmental. So, non judgmental just means that I'm not judging the person's behavior, like I'm not judging the individual. I can definitely take a look at the behavior. That behavior is not appropriate. That behavior isn't okay. Um, this should be handled differently. But I would not work with somebody that I could not be non-judgmental towards, which is why I don't work with people that harm children in that one particular kind of way. That SHO, I can't, like, I'm not in a, I don't do offender treatment. I work with kids that sometimes have been reactive, and referred them for appropriate screening and treatment and care. But for adults, it's not something that I can do from a neutral perspective. I just can't. So I don't do that kind of work. I have my big hats off to forensic psychologists, to people that do dedicate their life and their work to help individuals cope while they are incarcerated or while they're doing those things. Because our jails are filled with people with a lot of mental health conditions, a lot of ADHD, trauma, substance use and abuse, and then also some personality stuff. And so, yeah, it's good to know your boundaries. Like you have to know what's okay for you and what's not. And that's why I'm careful with some of those. Um, so legal minded, I'm sorry, they did not. So the when the person arrived home, they yes, so the child did not, and the parent has been arrested for yeah. And so Ah, it's a mess. I don't do parenting capacities. So there's a type of assessment where a psychologist sits down with the parent to talk about, do they have the capacity to parent? One of my supervisors did, and so she would interview the parent's interaction with the child for like hours, and she would do an assessment of the parent, their ability to manage stress, their parenting style, all of those things, and then make a recommendation to the court of, does this person have the capacity to parent? Because this was often when social services was looking at terminating parental rights. And that's type of I don't do those types of assessments because I like to think that everybody can get help and treatment. So there are local people that do those assessments. I don't do them because it would be really hard for me to have to testify against a parent and say, you can't parent. Like, there's no class, you do not have the capacity, and this is not something that you can learn. But there are people that do them. It's called a parenting capacity. They're really expensive, between like $3,000 to $6,000. Normal psychological can run you about like $1,000 to like $2,000 normally, but yeah. We talked about the projection. So they often project their own insecurities and shortcomings onto their children, blaming them for their own failures or inadequacies. And then gaslighting and denial. Narcissistic mothers may engage in gaslighting, distorting or denying reality to manipulate their children and make them doubt their own perceptions or experiences, which is, it can make the child feel like they're the one that is not okay because the parent like harms them, and then they're like, "You harmed me," and they're like, "No, I didn't." But and like it's like it can really, really be confusing for a child when they grow up experiencing those types of things. And there can also be a lack of boundaries. Um, and so, in talking about healing, so that's why we're here. In talking about healing the inner child and talking about healing the self, there is a type of therapy called internal family systems. And I talked about that, I believe, in my dissociation video, because we all have these parts of ourselves, and individuals with dissociative identity disorder, there are these organized personalities. And so IFS can be helpful, typically can be helpful for that. But then also for anybody that has depression or anxiety or any other types of things, internal family systems is a type of therapy. And there is a part of us that just needs to be loved, seen, and heard. And so I want to talk about some ways to heal your inner child. And it is a process of nurturing and caring for the wounded or neglected parts of yourself that were formed during your childhood. And here are some basic ways. So these are just general tips. So the first one being self awareness. Developing self awareness is really crucial for understanding the wounds and patterns from your childhood that still affect you today. Reflect on your emotions, triggers, patterns, and sometimes journaling can be a nice way to do that. For some people, poetry or writing songs. Different people find different ways to kind of do this. Sometimes something that I've done with clients is I've asked them to write a letter to themselves, to their inner, so their adult self writing to that younger part. So let's say they really remember some major wounds when they were 5 years old. So being able to say, "You at 5, what did you need? What did you need to hear?" And then from now, being able to write that letter to their younger selves. That can be incredibly triggering. So like that can be, so some people, we do that in session, in so they don't do that on their own at home, because if it's going to bring up too much, I want to be there to help them monitor it. But for a lot of people, they're able to do this as just in um some individual work on their own. So it's called like letter to your younger self. And some people, they seal it away, and every so often they look back. And sometimes it's often things like, "You're beautiful. You deserve love." Like and often people will get emotional, like themselves now. They'll get, because those are things that they still needed to hear, because there was a very wounded child that was still in them that didn't get parented the way that they needed to be parented. So I don't do like rebirthing. So some people like, I don't do like going back to drinking from a bottle. Like I don't do those things. If I am working with children that regress to a younger age, I try to help the parents understand the biology of that. I work with a lot of kids that are adopted, a lot of adopted adults as well. And sometimes people can, what we call, regress. They can go back to kind of younger times. I agree that I don't do, we I like, therapy is weird enough. Like we don't have to be like trying to like rebirth 10-year-olds and stuff. Like it's just those there that's I think there are other ways to build attachment. I think there are other ways to kind of build those things. I don't think you have to do that stuff. But in talking about doing that inner child work, we also validate your feelings. Acknowledge and validate. So validation also isn't approval. Validation is, I feel this way. And it's okay for me to feel this way. So if I'm feeling sad, oh, I'm feeling sad right now. And that's okay. But then I can decide if I want to stay in this sad mood. Because I know if I stay in bed and the windows are closed and I ignore or withdraw from people, I'm just going to feel sadder, or I'm not going to feel better. But if I go to brunch with friends, I'll feel better. So I might choose to do something different. But validating your emotions and experiences, because often people didn't get that validation from one or both of their parents. Inner dialogue and self-compassion. So please be kind to yourself. Speak to yourself kindly. Be kind. Provide. Um, so practice self-compassion by offering kind and supportive words to yourself. Some of my clients do this with affirmations. So they will do affirmations of I am loved. There are also something called affirmations where for some people saying I am loved, that's too much. For some people saying, what if I'm loved? What if I am loved? What if I am beautiful? What if I am? And that's where their brain is looking for the information that validates and confirms that. Some people's brain looks for the ways that that isn't true. And so, like, if that's you, then that just doing the straight I am statement might work better. For some people, they add what if to make it more helpful. Um, And so providing yourself with that love, support, and nurturing that your inner child needed, offering yourself self-care, reassurance, and validation. I also love, so like sometimes just going and like playing on a playground or like swinging. Swinging is like calming for me. I don't know. But just like there are ways that like just letting your inner child just kind of be happy. Some people will like put like barrettes in their hair. I don't know. Like just whatever would kind of touch that inner child for you. Maybe things that you weren't able to do. So when I was a kid, we weren't, my mom didn't let me play in the rain. She was like, you'll get sick. Like no playing in the rain, but like a hot summer rain, you get sick because of germs. Now, water does like open pores, makes it easier to possibly get sick, but like because you played in the rain doesn't mean you definitely will get sick. So I let my kid play in the rain same sometimes. Sometimes I'll play out there with him. Like I think it's cool. Um Creative expression. So finding creative ways to let your inner child express themselves, drawing, painting, writing, or playing music. This can help assess and release emotions that may be held within. So, in using that creative side, that's also our emotional side. And so sometimes it's a part that the words can't really connect with, but maybe through art, I can connect in those ways. Establish healthy boundaries, set and maintain boundaries. Y'all know my favorite book is Set Boundaries, Find Peace. I did a whole video review on that and a podcast episode. That was a phenomenal book. I did get Nedra Tawwab's second book, Drama Free. I haven't, oh, time. It's July. Like I haven't read it yet. But I do have it in queue on my for my audiobooks. Seek out support, do therapy, some people do coaching. Got to be careful because some coaches aren't regulated. It's not a regulated field. There are some phenomenal ones. There are some that are, so be careful with that. And then there are some inner child exercises, kind of like that letter to your inner self, and then practicing self-care. So taking care of yourself. Remember that healing your inner child is personal and ongoing journey. It may take time, patience, and commitment, but with self-compassion and support, you can nurture and heal the wounded parts of yourself, allowing for personal growth and self-acceptance and greater emotional well-being. All right? And so exactly, coaches aren't therapists. So the body keeps the score. So Bessel van der Kolk, like I've heard some, I don't know of it for sure. I've heard some things about him and like that he isn't great with women, or I don't know. Like there's some weird stuff in the psychology community. The book is incredibly triggering. I thought it was helpful. So trauma is held in our body. So everything in the book is true. I've recommended it to clients, and for some of them they couldn't get through it because the examples were too much. Oprah also did a book. It didn't start with you. I think it was like what happened to you, I think was Oprah's book. Um, Again, some triggering stories and things. I've had some clients not be able to make it through it. So The Body Keeps the Score is a book by Bessel van der Kolk. Because you asked what book. So the one I was talking about was The Body Keeps the Score. And then the other book, Oprah did a book with another therapist. I forget his name off the top of my head. I believe I have all these books in my self-help Amazon link, which I believe I have right in. If you go back to my homepage, you should be able to click on my Amazon link, and I have a ton of support books there. It's an affiliate link, blah, 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 small commission if you buy anything. But that's a place where I've gathered a lot of resources. So if you go to the self-help section, there is a ton of resources there. Oprah with therapist. Let me see if I can find it. Let me go to my page, amazon.com/shop. There we go. I will share this. I hope this is the right one. I didn't check to make sure it was the right one. Present, share screen. This should be it. And so let me go back. So I have self-help books here, self-help books. And let's find, so drama-free family, set boundaries, find peace, recovery from gaslighting, narcissistic. This one I think is more for if you had a partner that has been abusive. I have a ton of books. Here's the recovering from emotionally immature parents. I think that's the workbook. I have not looked at the workbook. I've only looked at the regular book. So the regular book is here, that bestseller. My book, Turning Crisis into Clarity, How to Survive or Thrive in the Midst of Uncertainty. Got to click show more. So many books. I'll move the Oprah one closer to the top. I told y'all I like books a lot. Body Keeps a Score is right here. Where is the one with Oprah? What Happened to You? So that's this book. Let's click there. And it was her and Dr. Bruce Perry. So he is a trauma and attachment specialist. I think I've attended one of his trainings. I've definitely viewed his stuff online, and I've read some of his books. But it was What Happened to You? Conversations on Resilience and Healing. There are some triggering stories. Heads up. So let me try to move that. After I get off, I will try to move that further up so that that one is easier to find. You don't have to scroll all the way down. So Sarah, I know. Let me put that one up there. I do. Thank you for joining. Aw. So Sarah is a member. If I have any other members that I have not, welcome new member. And so if I try to every now and then put videos out that are early for y'all to see, I truly appreciate the support. It helps me be able to just do this, and along with private practice and all the other things I do. And so as the membership grows, I will offer like behind the scenes streams, and I'll be able to offer some different things. It's not something that people have to do. So just subscribing, if you haven't subscribed, I appreciate each and every one, because I didn't think. So I grew on TikTok. I had fun. But now, like, y'all have me over here on YouTube having a blast. And really, it was the Grizzlies. Ton of love and support in the chat for the Grizzlies, the law nerds, the chicklets, like all of the law community. Like, y'all have come out in major way. Oh, Whitney. Hello, Whitney. Welcome. And so welcome to the membership. Like, I truly appreciate each and every person. And I do so when you all ask for specific videos, because Sarah was the one that requested that I talk about narcissistic mothers, and we did that today. I need to go ahead and hop off. I think I have one more video I need to record today, so I'm gonna have to find time to record the last one and do the editing, and then that one will be up probably Tuesday. Will probably be the Alexi Trevio one. All right. I might make it available to members to Monday. If I finish it today, Monday. So if I finish it today or tomorrow, I'll probably make it available to members on Monday, and then it'll be available to the public on Tuesday. So I appreciate you all. I hope y'all enjoy the rest of your day. If y'all celebrate, Tuesday the 4th. I probably won't put it out on, we'll see. People might be home watching videos. Sure. I'll put it out on a Tuesday. I hope y'all have a good one. Bye.